Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience. I'm here tonight with my first impressions of the Fiio K9 Pro ESS. This is a headphone amp that was loaned to me by the great people at Apos Audio, and this currently sells for $849.99, and that is in US dollars. This is a combination headphone amp, DAC, and preamp, and this is the ESS version. This is the newer version. There was originally a version of this that used one AKM AK4499 DAC chip that sold for $699, but because of the shortage, or maybe not available at all, of that chip anymore because of the fire, and I guess it was 2020 at the AKM factory. But anyway, so Fiio switched over and they're now using two Sabre ES 9058 or 9038 Pro DAC chips, and I did not get a chance to hear or review the AKM version of this, so I will not be able to tell you how they compare. I know one of the differences is that it now has vents in the side. It's a little, slightly lighter, like I think 50 grams lighter, and that could be the reason, because of the vents in the side of it. And this is very heavy for its size. It weighs in, it's either 6 or 7 pounds, I forget, but I mean, for the small size of it, it's very heavy. Feels very substantial and well built. A while back, I had a chance to review a couple of DACs from Topping, the D70S MQA and the D90ES. And I actually preferred the D70S, and that uses AKM DAC chips. It used two of the AK4497 chips, which I think is one step down from the chip that was used in this, but the original Fiio K9 only used one of those chips. But anyway, the Topping DAC, the D70, has been one of my favorites for quite a while now, and the D90 actually used the Sabre ES 9038, which I think it only used one, where this uses two, but I wasn't crazy about the sound of the D90. I thought it sounded a little bit dry, a little bit too analytical, a little bit. I thought it lacked musicality, where the D70 had a warmer, richer sound to it, and I actually preferred that. So I was actually a little bit concerned at first about reviewing this because, number one, it's using the Sabre ES 9038 DAC chips, and I was concerned that, like the D90 from Topping, it might sound a little dry and lack musicality. Also, this uses THX AAA 788 amp chips, and I've never reviewed a THX AAA amp before, and I have heard from other reviewers that those can also sound sort of dry and a little bit on the cold side of neutral. Very well detailed, but just once again lacking the richness. So being a combination of the ES 9038 DAC chips and the THX AAA amp chips, I was afraid that this would, that I might not like it for that reason, that it, like I said, it just might be too cold sounding, because I've been preferring warmer sounding equipment lately. I really like R2R DACs because of that warmer, leaning towards the warm side of neutral sound that most of them have. I think I've reviewed about 4 R2R DACs now. And also, I've become a real big fan of tube amps in the last couple of years, and once again, you know, they kind of lean towards the warm side. So anyway, but I'll tell you right now, I'm actually pleasantly surprised. This doesn't sound cold or clinical or analytical like I was expecting it to. It's actually slightly on the warm side of neutral and pretty enjoyable to listen to. So I'll get it more into the sound in a few minutes. I wanted to talk about the specs a little bit first. This, I think I mentioned already, uses dual THX AAA 788 amp chips. In the amplifier section, it has dual femtosecond clocks. It has four digital inputs. That would be coax, optical, USB, and Bluetooth. And as far as the coax, you actually have two choices. Or not the coax, the USB, you have two choices. You have a type B port on the rear and a type C port on the side, and I'll show that to you in a minute. This amp has technically one analog input, but it has two choices. You have a choice of either RCA single-ended on the rear or 4.4 millimeter balanced on the rear. But you can't use both at the same time. It only has one input, analog input selection, and so it's going to, I forgot which one takes priority. I think the 4.4 millimeter. If you have both hooked up, it's going to take the input from that input selection, the 4.4 millimeter. So, I mean, technically you have two connection choices, but only one. You can only use one at a time, or you don't have a switch to switch between the two. So anyway, and then there's three headphone outputs on this: a 6.3 millimeter single-ended, a balanced XLR that's a full-size 4-pin XLR, and a 4.4 millimeter Pentacon balanced headphone output. It has two choices of preamp outputs. You have RCA single-ended and 3-pin XLR on the rear, or you can, by flipping a switch, you can make those fixed volume and use them as DAC outputs to use this as a standalone DAC into another amp. And I haven't had a chance to try that yet. This is my first impressions. I've had this about a week now, and haven't had a chance to use it as a standalone DAC, but I have put in a few hours of listening, just to this as a all-in-one, as a DAC and amp combination. I've actually been pretty impressed by it. But anyway, so you can use the same outputs, your RCA single-ended or XLR, to output this as a DAC. It's a fixed DAC running into another amp. You have a choice of three gain settings. The switch is on the front and easy to get to, and this unit is rated at 2.1 watts per channel into 32 ohms, and that is from the balanced output. I was looking at, I think, it does mention it in the instructions. The instructions that come with this have probably 10 or 12 different languages, and they're not real thorough, but anyway, they cover most of the basics as far as the amp. And there is a mention of a phone amp, and I had to look that up on the Fiio website. And apparently there is a phone app that you can use your phone to control more features of this amp that you can't control without it. So I'm not real big into phone apps. I've got an iPhone 11 that I basically don't know how to use, and I usually have problems loading apps to it for some reason. But apparently with the phone amp, you can go in and control the digital filters, and I believe there's 7 different choices of roll-off filters. And as far as I know, there's no way to access that and change those without the phone amp. Also, I think it has a balance control and even an EQ, but I think it looks like the EQ only works on Bluetooth. I'm not sure if it can be used with the other digital inputs. I'll try to look into that more before I do my full review on this. And I did want to mention that I have not used the USB input on this yet, because according to their website, it looks like I have to load a driver to my computer before I can do that, and I haven't done that yet. I just haven't had the time to do it. I'm using an HP desktop running Windows 10, and it looks like, according to the website, it's not going to match up or sync without loading that driver first. And I will be honest, this is the first piece of equipment that I've had to do that. Every other DAC that I've reviewed so far, I've been able to plug directly into my computer, and it's hooked right up with Windows 10 in a matter of seconds, and I haven't had to load any drivers or anything. So apparently I do with this. I haven't actually tried it. I haven't tried hooking this up to my computer to see if it works without the driver, but it looks like that's something I'm going to have to do. And once again, not crazy about having to do that, but I will before I do my full review, and definitely try this from the USB output, because one of the comparisons I want to make is to the Hi-Fi-Man EF400, and that only has USB input, so I'm going to have to put these side by side on my desk, and I do want to compare the two. So anyway, so how I did review this up to this point is I used a CD transport from Cambridge Audio and ran a digital signal into, I think I've used both the coax and optical on this so far without any problems there. So getting into the sound of this, my first impression is it just sounds exceptionally clean and detailed. Just a very, very good resolution, and just a very, very clean sound, but not what I was expecting. I was expecting a dry, analytical kind of on the cold side of neutral sound. But that's not what happened. It actually, I would say it's slightly on the warm side of neutral, but very, very detailed, but actually sounds really good to me. You know, I'm really happy with the sound of this, and I was a little bit worried, but now that I've listened to it, and I've tried it with several different headphones, I tried this with the Hi-Fi-Man Ananda, and I've tried it with a couple of the hard-to-drive Hi-Fi-Mans. I'll talk about that in a second. And I tried it with the Kennerton Thror, which is kind of, it's my flagship open back headphone, and great for testing soundstage because it has a really large, really deep layered soundstage, that headphone, and it's great for testing the soundstage, and that's pretty much what I came up with. This amp DAC combo has a really good width to the soundstage, and it actually has quite a bit of depth, not as much depth as like an R2R DAC hooked up to a tube amp, but better than most solid state amps hooked up to Delta Sigma type DACs. And but what I did notice, it seems to have a lot of layering in the soundstage, not so much out in front, but it has real good layering side to side. Instead of the sounds just being like in the middle or right or left, there's a lot of in between. There's a lot of different stages. I hear different instruments, different sounds at different distances off to the left and right. Probably better than most DACs I've heard. So I'm pretty impressed by that. I like that layered kind of three-dimensional sound. Like I said, it doesn't have a huge amount of soundstage out front. It's decent, you know, it's pretty good, especially for a Delta Sigma DAC. But it has really good distinct layers going, you know, out to each side. At least 3 different layers, you know, well, in by my ears, and then at least 3 more layers that I can hear, you know, instruments at different distances. I did want to mention the power output of this. I guess I wasn't really concerned with it putting out 2.1 watts per channel into 32 ohms, but I did want to test it with a couple of my hard to drive headphones, and that would be the Hi-Fi Man HE400 SE, which is a great budget headphone, but it needs a lot of amp behind it. And if it doesn't have enough power, basically if it doesn't have enough current, the bass can sound really flat and lacking dynamics, and actually can get kind of muddy. And this did a really good job with that, both from the balanced output and the single-ended output, the 6.3 millimeter. And then also the Hi-Fi Man HE560, which is probably the hardest, definitely the hardest headphone that I have to drive. And once again, a headphone that really lacks bass impact if it doesn't have enough power, and this amp seems to do great with that, both from the balanced output and the single-ended. So there doesn't seem to be a problem with power. I mean, I can't say if this would drive an HE6 or something like that, or an Abyss or a Saspara, but I don't have any of those. And but the Hi-Fi Man HE560 is known to be pretty hard to drive, and it did a really good job. And I just realized that I haven't showed you the amp up close yet, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to show you some of the accessories it came with. So anyway, on the front here you have your 4-pin XLR headphone output, your, I can't tell, this is your 6.3 millimeter single-ended and your 4.4 millimeter balanced, and then you've got 4 switches over here. Well, you've got 5 LEDs up here, and that shows you which input you're using. And then you've got your switches here, and they're very hard to read. You've got to get the light just right to be able to read them. And the first one is your switch to go from headphone amp to preamp or DAC fixed outputs, and then the second one is your 3 positions of gain for your amp, and then you've got your input, which you just keep pressing it and it toggles through the 5 inputs. It's 4 digitals and 1 analog input. And then this button here is your power on and off, but there's also a power button on the back, so you can leave the power button on the back of the amp on, and then this becomes a standby button, turning it from standby to on. And then also apparently you can give it a quick push while it's on, and it mutes the amp. Oh, and then the volume knob. And one of the other differences between this and the original version, I've heard that the original version has silver around the volume knob, and this has gold. But first of all, it's a really large volume knob. It's very smooth. And what I wanted to point out on this is I found out that this is like similar to the volume knob on the Singzer SA1, where instead of being linear, where it just the volume increase is equal all the way around, like the Singzer, it starts out real slow. A big movement just makes a very small increase in the volume. But as you go farther around, it starts ramping up a lot faster. And when you get up, to like 2, 3 o'clock, then the power really starts hitting hard. And so with headphones like the HE560, you're probably going to be up normal listening, probably about 1 o'clock on the volume knob. And if you want to listen to it loud, you're going to be somewhere up about 3. If you're down like 9 o'clock, it's going to be like the 9 o'clock position before you even start to hear anything, with a hard to drive headphone. And that's even on high gain. But like I said, it doesn't run out of power. It's just the volume knob is real gradual at first, and then starts ramping up, and the volume increases a lot faster as you get around further. I wanted to show you the back. You've got your AC input, and I did want to mention on the bottom, there's a switch here, and you got to reach in there with something to switch it, and that switches between 115 volts or 230, whatever you're using, you know, so this can be used internationally. So anyway, this one came at 115, but I think someone had already reviewed this unit before I did, so I'm not sure the way it comes, but there's actually a big notice. It's the first thing you see when you open the box. It lets you know that you need to set the voltage to 115 if you live in the US, or 230, I don't know, I guess that's somewhere in Europe probably. Anyway, then you have your main power button here, which you can shut it off completely, or you can leave this on and then use the power button on the front to put it into standby. You've got your 4 digital inputs here. You've got Bluetooth, you've got coax, you've got USB type B, and then you've got your optical input there. And then analog inputs, you've got 4.4 millimeter balance there, and then you've got your RCA single-ended inputs. Then you've got your RCA single-ended outputs that can be used either as a preamp with variable volume or fixed, and then you've got your XLR balanced outputs that once again can be used either with volume control or fixed. And then somewhere here, there it is, over on the side, there is a second USB input. It's up towards the front, easy to get to, and that's a USB Type-C plug there. And this thing comes with a lot of accessories. And the first thing I wanted to show you is it comes with this little plastic stand, and yeah, it looks kind of cheap, but it does what it's supposed to do. It's got a rubber pad inside, it's got little rubber feet on the bottom, and it's actually angled. I don't know how to I don't think I'm going to be able to show you the angle here, but anyway, it angles up a little bit, and the idea here is it's made so you can stand this amp up on its side, and you're probably going to want to do it this way with the headphone connections down, and it'll tilt the front end up just a little bit, and then this will hold it. And this is actually wide enough that it'll stand by itself, but this little stand is nice. Kind of tips the front end up a little bit, makes it easier to see everything. So Burson's been doing that for a while with a little aluminum stand and all that, but like I said, this is just plastic, but it does the job. It does it okay. Something else this comes with, I wanted to mention, or I did mention earlier, that these switches here, the writing on there is very hard to see. You've got to have the light at just the right angle to be able to see those. It's small, and there's just not enough contrast or something. But anyway, very hard to read, and I guess that's probably been a problem for some other people too. So this did come with 2 sets of stickers, and this sticker can be put on over the buttons, and it's a little bit easier to see, a little bit larger writing. This one has different colors, and then this one is just white, but here, I try to show you that. It's another option that you can put the sticker on, and it goes over the switches, and I'm not going to do that because this is a loaner unit. It doesn't belong to me, but anyway, then I showed you the switch on the bottom here to switch the voltage. You know, depending where you live on, it comes with a little rubber plug that you can put in there and cover that up. It also comes with 6 of these little rubber feet, and I guess the intention is you put 4 of those on the bottom at the 4 corners, but then if you're gonna use this up on its side like this, then the little plastic stand will go up here at the front, and then you, well, it goes the other way. No, I had it right the first time. But anyway, you put the little stand, and then you put 2 rubber feet down here on the end, and that way it's, you know, gonna get a good grip, and it should help with vibration or anything. You know, they are rubber. This unit does also come with a USB cable. I don't know how long it is. I haven't unfolded it yet. I'm guessing it's only a couple feet long. It comes with a little plastic plug that you can put over the headphone output, the 4-pin XLR on the front. Not sure exactly why you'd want to do that, but you can stick that in there and cover up that headphone output. Comes with a Bluetooth antenna, and you've got a 3.5 to 6.3 millimeter adapter for your headphones, and I think every amp comes with those, and if you're like me, you've accumulated about a dozen of those over the years. And what else? Oh, and I did want to mention the power cable. It's just pretty much your typical 18 gauge power cable, except for every other one I've seen has been about 6 feet long, and this one's only 4 feet long for some reason. So I'm not sure why, but I just wanted to point that out, that the power cable is shorter than normal. So, oh, and I did want to mention the dimensions. This unit is about 8 inches wide. It's about 8.5 inches deep, front to back, counting the volume knob. And it's just under 3 inches tall. And if I were to put the rubber feet on it on the bottom here, it would be 3 inches tall. And once again, this thing's very substantial. It weighs in either 6 or 7 pounds. I can't remember. So anyway, my plan is, before I do my full review on this, I definitely want to compare this to a few other things. And I did have, and you probably saw the review a couple weeks ago, I did have the iFi Zen 1 Signature DAC and Zen Can Signature Hi-Fi Man version as a stack that I reviewed. And I was fortunate enough to have about a 1-day overlap on these. I had to ship those out, and I was getting this in, and I held on to those for an extra couple days so I could do a very quick comparison. And all I had was about 1 hour, one night, to compare this to the iFi Zen Signature stack. And I know I can't do a great comparison in 1 hour, because at first they did sound pretty similar to each other. There wasn't a whole lot of difference. And in that 1 hour, what I finally came up with was that the iFi stack sounded just slightly warmer and richer, mostly in the mid-range, than this does. But the K9 Pro, it sounded slightly cleaner and just slightly more detailed. Like I said, they were pretty similar, but just a little bit better detail out of the Fiio, and a little bit slightly warmer, richer sound from the iFi stack. So that's about all I'm going to be able to give you on that comparison, because like I said, I only had a 1-day overlap and only had about 1 hour, one evening to compare the two. So, but while I have this, or before I do my full review, I definitely want to compare it to the Hi-Fi Man EF400, which I still have, and hopefully we'll have it for a little while and can do this comparison. And that is an amp DAC that I love the sound of, but have a major complaint. It lacks inputs. It has only 1 digital input compared to 4 on this, and it has no analog inputs. But I love the sound of it, so I wanna, but this is more expensive. This is what, $250 more than the Hi-Fi Man. So those extra features, this has a ton more features, but the price is higher. So, but I'm really curious as to how they're going to compare in sound. So I guess I'm going to have to download the driver or whatever to be able to hook this up to my computer. But definitely that's going to be the major comparison I want to do, is how this thing compares to the EF400 from Hi-Fi Man. This has the inputs and all that, but it's the sound I'm really concerned about. So I'm going to try to spend as much time as I can comparing those two and let you know how they compare sound-wise. I've also got the Burson Conductor 3 reference here still, and I realize that's twice the price. It's probably the best, definitely the best DAC amp combo I've reviewed so far. I want to see how this compares to that, how it holds up to an amp DAC combo of twice the price. And then I have my old Benchmark DAC 1, which actually was my reference DAC that I used with testing most amps and stuff till about 2 years ago. And it's kind of outdated, but it's still, I mean, it was rated Class A by Stereophile magazine back in like 2012. And it's still a great little amp DAC that went for about $1,000. And I figure, well, I've got this here. I do a comparison and see if this makes that obsolete, or if that still holds its own against this, or how the two compare. And then I'd want to try this as a DAC only, and I really want to compare this to the Topping D70S MQA, which is a DAC that I absolutely love. It goes for about $650, so it's only, well, it's not available anymore, and the reason why is, once again, the AKM chips that used two of the AK4497 chips, and apparently they're not available, so that DAC isn't available anymore. But I just read that, I think last night, that I don't think there's going to be any more D70s, S's. But anyway, I love that DAC. I still have it here, and I want to compare that DAC to this one and see how the two compare. I'll run that DAC into this and try both DACs using this amp, and then I can use both of these as standalone DACs, and I'll try running them both into my Audio GD Master 9, because it has two balanced inputs, or two sets of balanced inputs, and I can hook them both up and volume match them and switch back and forth. So it's a great way to test DACs. So I'll be sure to do that before I get my full review in. So I'm not sure how long that's going to be. I'm guessing, probably 3 or 4 weeks at the soonest, but I'll try to get that, and got a few other reviews. Still got my full review of the Hi-Fi Man. Excuse me a second. Still got my full review of the Hi-Fi Man Ananda that I need to get out, and have some other things coming in soon, so hopefully I'll have some more reviews coming up in the near future here. So anyway, I've already gone really long on my first impression, so I'll wrap this up. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video has helped you, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. And you're all welcome to join us at the Headphone Experience on Facebook. We hit 19,000 members yesterday. So once again, thanks for watching my video.